In the last episode, I walked you through a mock-up in Photoshop based on a few designs that I had in mind. And there's this one design that I particularly liked, and that was the second idea, wherein I integrated the bowl directly into the existing design. The whole idea revolves around the concept of having a lake. The stream would fill up the lake collects the water, and from the lake in the bowl there would be some plants flowing out like a waterfall into the sea of succulents. So that was the design peg. Now, being able to visualize that in Photoshop is one thing. Actually doing that in real life is another. So let's see where we go today. Now, like with my other builds, the first step involves cleaning up the space. So I've got a bunch of trays here. I'll be placing all the plants that would be affected, temporarily moving them here and place them back in later on when I'm ready to fill up the gaps again. The first step is to remove all of these plants and maybe some of the rocks here to make space for the bowl as I adjust the placement of the bowl. And this step is what is called the staging. We have to make sure everything is in place, all of the fixtures, before we start filling it up with plants. I think this is good enough. I just need to lower it a bit just to make it level with the stream. Now that I've got a bowl where I want it, it's time to start filling it up. I have to decide whether I want to include some rocks in here, because placing some rocks would make it infinitely harder to plant in. But that's the general idea. I want the flow of the glocca to continue on here, so I'll be diverting everything. Instead of continuing down here, they would be flowing into the bowl, pooling up somewhere in here before it drips out and into the sea of blue. Before I can do all of that, I would need to remove all of these plants right here, including this lilachina, and maybe I could move some of the rocks that I extracted and position them here, you know, just to block off the stream. Let's get to work.
Everything
Now that I've cleared up this area, I need to start thinking about the plants that I'll be using here. I was thinking that the lilachina that used to be there should come here, somewhere in front. It would make a nice focal piece. I might have to do a little tapestry around here, because the way I imagine it is that the blue would be flowing in this area, so this would be land as well as this side. And to complete that illusion, I think I need to add some plants here. In my Photoshop mock-up, I placed some gold mound on this side, which I think would make a nice contrast against all of the blue, because so far everything has been blue. So gold mound around here would be nice. Some whites in here to contrast against the yellows and the blues would work as well. I think as long as it's light to complement this, the bowl itself, that might work. But I wonder if I should plant around the lilachina, because if it is the focus piece, then nothing else should be taking attention from it, if you understand what I mean. But since I'm set on that part, I'm going to plant that in now. Before planting, I have to make sure that I remove all of the dead leaves and make sure that there's no tangled roots. That way it will be able to spread its roots rather quickly. So remove the dead leaves. There's lots and lots of dead leaves here. It's quite an old plant, so what can you expect? Apart from removing the dead leaves underneath, I need to remove all of the existing soil, because the new soil is better than the old one that I'm using here. It's too compacted, it's retaining too much water, so yeah, I would definitely need to replace this. Have a look at those roots. So thick. Thick boy. First plant in, now for the rest of the fillers. When planting the glocca rosettes, I'm going to separate them this time. Unlike, I'm not going to keep them in the same clumps that they are in right now. That way they would be spreading a lot faster than if I kept them in clumps. I'm going to plant them in individually. Lots to go through, but that's the way it is. Another reason why you would want to do this, plant them individually, is that this way, as they grow, things would be growing evenly. There would be no clumps that are larger than the others. They're more or less the same size. It's a bit sparse right now, but in a few months it will be all worth it. You might also be wondering why I'm planting them in the ground after chopping off the stems. Well, there's no forecast of rain anytime soon, so it's going to stay dry. I don't think it's going to be a problem. Next up are the gold mound. The way I work with them is that I just chop off the heads. Because if you look at this, they're too leggy, so I'll just be using the ends and replant them like so. You could plant them whole if you want to, it's totally fine, but if you want them to grow evenly, then you would have to do that. Just so there would be lots of growth, I'm going to include this clump. As for the rest of them, I'm just going to stick them in. I think some violet queens would be nice for this spot. Just need to clean them up though. They are quite dry and old and not doing so well. I'm planting them sparsely right now, but my goal for this is to have them grow to fill up the area. This one's produce lots of pops, so yeah, it's only a matter of time before they do. This is one of those, I didn't plan this, but as soon as I saw it, I knew I wanted to use this sort of thing. Now to grab some pearls. Should be enough. With pearls, what you want to do is to tuck them in as far as you can go and plant other plants on top of it. That way you can protect the roots, because these things, they tend to dry out rather easily. And if you're going to plant them, I would suggest planting them in autumn, like what I'm doing now, or in winter, because there's less chance for them to dry out. So you have to be very, very careful when working with these things. Right now I'm just staging them, just placing them in a spot where they would be hanging. But right after this, you'll see me topping up more soil, because these things, they need water retentive soil. Need to be held in place as well. These things, so finicky. Another technique that you could do is just to plant a very huge clump of them. Some of them would die this way, but the rest, those that dry out, or at least those at the top, would protect the ones underneath them. So yeah. For this, I'm going to use a regular cactus and succulent mix and just sprinkle it on top of them. Eventually my watering would be spilling this out, clean it up, but until then there would be enough time for them to rejuvenate their roots and just pretty much have a better hold. I still have lots of other pearls here, so I'll just place them on top. Look at the roots on this one. Like I said, just to give them more protection, I'm going to plant more glocca right on top of them. This works two ways. The glocca would be providing shade for the roots, that way they do not dry out quickly. And the other reason is that the roots of the glocca would be holding them in place, just as it holds the soil. Eventually the pearls would be sending out their own roots further down because they are underneath the glocca, so they would not be competing as much for the space. I'm also using some premium cactus and succulent mix on the ground where the pearls are touching, because this would give them a boost or somewhere to hold, or something nutritious to hold on to. In the case that the stems on the top do not make it, at least they would still be nourished somewhere at the bottom. So it works both ways. And finally, I'll be dropping in some premium soil mix between the violet queens, because they're looking quite dry and they could use the boost. The reason being that this soil mix has some controlled release fertilizer pellets. So yeah, I'm going to apply it around the lilachina and on the gold mound as well, for the same reasons. And that's about it for this spot. Now all I have to do is to wait for these plants to fill in the gaps. They would be doing this several months from now, maybe after winter or through spring. But until then, I just have to make sure that they're fed enough before they go into dormancy. These ones are definitely going dormant, as well as this one. The others, this Rhaptocidum and the gold mound, they would be not necessarily active, but they would be growing throughout the colder months. So I have to make sure that they are well taken care of by then. For the next installment, I'm going to continue working from the waterfalls of strings, string pearls, water pearls. I'll be working from where the strings have left off and continue filling up the gaps in the sea of blue. That's going to be another big job. So I'll see you then. Bye. Cerriscapades is made possible with the support of my Patreon sponsors. Patreon allows you to support content creators like me with a small monthly donation. You can pledge your support by heading over to patreon.com/Cerriscapades. If you're in Australia, I've got some of my plants for sale. Check out my plant shop at cerriscapades.com/theplant shop with dashes.